Thank you, Mr Efford. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and can I echo the congratulations to the Honourable Member for Newcastle-upon-Tyne North for securing debate today. I welcome efforts to establish the Multilateral International Fund to help build a lasting Israeli-Palestinian peace. Anything that helps to bring countries together and focuses hearts and minds is a positive step, although we have to recognise there are clearly other issues that need to be addressed on the ground to get things moving in that direction. I would certainly welcome diplomatic support from the FCDO to help establish the fund and ensure buy-in from the other nations too. I know that a very similar fund, as we've heard from other members, was established to help bring peace in Northern Ireland, where, according to the Alliance for Middle Eastern Peace, £1 billion was spent over 2 decades in those efforts. Now, that's almost 10 times the amount being proposed that has been spent on similar efforts between Israelis and Palestinians to date. Of course, the concerted efforts that brought results in Northern Ireland remain a beacon of hope for all of us. And from those who grew up in that time, nobody could have imagined they'd ever see Ian Paisley Sr. or Mark McGuinness not only sharing power, but being friendly and having that rapport together and earning themselves the Chuckle Brothers nickname. I sincerely hope that particularly hard-won peace is not undermined by reckless Brexit actions that the government are currently taking, and that the UK does belatedly recognise the importance of sticking to international law. For chaos follows when governments unilaterally decide which international laws to follow and which to simply ignore, as indeed we've seen in the Middle East. Like my SNP colleagues, I'm speaking here as a friend of Israel, but a critical one. I absolutely understand and support Israel's right to defend their territory against aggressors, but there are undoubtedly some threats from militant factions, where there are undoubtedly threats from militant factions in Palestine. But I cannot support actions that undermine international laws and extending territories beyond internationally agreed boundaries, such as the 53-year-old Israeli occupation of the West Bank. I cannot support actions that impose such brutal living conditions on a civilian population in Palestinian territories and cut access to vital health care, albeit I'm very impressed by the programme outlined by the Honourable Member for Bury South. That does sound to be very much a step in the right direction. I hope that now we have a new president on the way in the United States, there may be a chance for some reflection and de-escalation of tensions that could permanently threaten the viability of a two-state solution by continuing to erode Palestinian rights. I welcome the fact that the Israeli annexations of the West Bank have been put on hold by signing of the Abraham Accords. It's also positive to see some progress in normalising the diplomatic relations between Israel and the surrounding Arab states of Bahrain, Sudan and the United Arab Emirates. But at what cost? As with everything in the region, there's a more nuanced and complex story behind the smiles and warm words of these agreements, and much more to be concerned about than the top line of a story might suggest. While these accords were in principle supposed to halt further occupation and annexation of occupied territories, they stand in contravention of the terms of the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative, in which the establishment of an independent Palestinian state was given precognition for full normal relations with Israel. This deal may have put further annexation on the back burner for now, but it's not removed the threat. It also disregards existing breaches of international law in occupied territories and Palestinian sovereignty rights, which would have major implications for reaching any lasting settlement between Israel and Palestine. Khaled Elgandi, a political analyst and author on the conflict, wrote, "As many of us have argued from the start, Arab Gulf states' normalisation with Israel is not about normalising bilateral ties as much as they are about normalising Israeli occupation in the settlements, and that can't be allowed. We also know settler violence and the forced displacement of Palestinian people in the occupied West Bank has continued. On the night of November 4th, as the eyes of the world focused on the US election, 70 more Palestinian structures were demolished by Israeli forces in the Bedouin hamlet of Kirbet Hamza, making 74 Palestinians, including 41 children, homeless. Forcibly confiscating land and demolishing homes is not the way to make peace, and a realistic option that this has to be stopped. The diplomatic role the UK has played in harbouring peace should not be undermined by continuing to sell arms, which may be used in unlawful killings by any regime, whether friend or foe. The UK has massively increased the sale of arms to the Israeli Defence Forces at a time when there has been rightful international condemnation of indiscriminate airstrikes and credible reports of unlawful killings, including against children and medics. The human rights record of Israel against Palestinians is woeful, and the UK should not turn a blind eye to the potential role in supplying these weapons. Arms sales should be suspended until all such reports of human rights violations are independently investigated. I know the term ethical foreign policy went out of fashion with the late Robin Cook, but it's certainly time we brought it back, for without that, what do we stand for? I want Scotland and the UK to be a force for good in the world, not an enabler of human rights abuses. I'm sure everyone in this House is united in wanting to see progress towards sustainable peace and stability for both the people of Israel and the people of Palestine, based on mutual recognition and the rule of law. I hope the proposed fund will help these efforts, but not in itself is enough to move things beyond warm words. The UK has an important diplomatic role and a responsibility in the region, and I look forward to hearing from the Minister about any measures being brought forward. Recognising the issues on the ground for the people of Palestine and speaking out against human rights abuses without fear or favour is central to helping progress to a meaningful, sustainable peace that can meet the aspirations of all.